Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
I felt like the heist when they get into Lorea's jungle compound was almost like too easy. Like there was no drawn out kind of tension or set piece, you know.
I find it tense, but it's not as tense as other.
It was tense, but it felt like they were too slick. They kind of just took everyone down really easily and then they were out of there. And I was like, oh, is that it? They've kind of got away with the money.
103rd episode of Flixwatcher podcast is coming into your ears. Thank you very much, guys.
Hello, film fans. Joining us for this episode of Flixwatcher podcast, we have Eran.
Hello.
Matt.
Hello.
And Kobe.
Blah, blah, blah. Kobalino, Cobes. Kobayashi. Kobe the man.
Kobayashi, yeah.
To review, Triple Frontier.
As always, guys, we have all the show notes online at flixwatcher.tv for all the episodes, so please come and visit us there. Of course, join us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, and please come to iTunes, rate us, and subscribe.
All films featured in the podcast were available to stream on Netflix UK at the time of recording, and please be aware there will be spoilers and some language that may offend. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. In our studio today we have Eran and Matt. If you would like to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit about the work that you do, please.
My name is Eran Creevy. I am a writer and a director. My first film was a film called Shifty, for which I was nominated for a BAFTA. And I've since made 2 other films, Welcome to the Punch and an action film called Collide. And got my own production company called Invisible Kid, which I've just set up. And that's it. Used to direct music videos and commercials. And used to do it with Matt, who's here with me now. We used to be co-directors and we used to co-direct stuff with Take That and such bands.
So what Take That videos you shot?
Well, one did we shoot? We shot one called For Kids, didn't we? We shot one. Well, Matt had already directed. What was the video you first directed for Take That?
I did a video when they did their comeback, when they got back together again. I did a video for a track called The Flood.
Yeah.
I've still to this date, I have no idea why they asked me to do it, other than because you always have all this. My bullshit-ometer always rises quite high when the person who's kind of pitching to you from the record company was like, oh, they really like what you've done. I was like, they've never seen anything else. No, they really, really like it. And then the only thing I'd really done I'd done a film called Road to Guantanamo, but they definitely hadn't seen that. But then I'd done a film called Sex and Drugs. I was like, did someone just say to them, do you like sex and drugs? And they were like, yeah. And that's probably how I got the gig, which is not a bad way to get a gig. But yeah, so we did that one together. And then because I'd done one, they came back and said, would you like to do another one? And I was in the middle of trying to finance and make a film about my dad, really, which we ended up making with Ray Winston and Jim Sturgis and Leslie Manville and Luke Evans, called Ashes. But we couldn't get the money, and the money was there and there wasn't, the cast was there and all that kind of thing. But I wanted to do this thing with Take That. And then I spoke to Eran and he was like, well, let's just do it together. And so we kind of ended up. Yeah, because you were busy making the film and then you said, can you write the treatment for this? Can you write the treatment for this music video? Pitch it. So I just quickly bashed it something together on my laptop. We sent it over as me and you pitching it together. We got the pitch. Then the next thing we were flying out to Bulgaria to shoot in the New Bojana Studios, which is like owned by Avi Lerner, who makes all the Expendable movies. And they've got like big New York sets over there, and they've got the Conan the Barbarian that made with Jason Momoa. They never get rid of their sets. They just reuse them on any movie that goes and gets made there. It's incredible.
And should we talk about the actual true story that happened when you had to?
Go on, then.
We've never talked to anyone about this before.
I'm much more
exclusive.
I'm already much more professional than this.
You are completely more professional, but we were both co-directing it together. So the first day, it's all about it was this spaceship which is in the shape of the Take That symbol that lands down over New York. Take That come out of it. It was massive budget music video.
Yeah, I don't know what you were thinking when you wrote the treatment.
Yeah, I know.
But the saddest thing was because I was in the middle of pre-production on this film. So Eran basically said, "Don't worry, I'll write a treatment. It'll be fine." And he sent it to me. And it was something had happened. There was some tube strike or something was going on and my phone wasn't working. So he sent it to me and I had to go and pitch it to the band.
Yeah.
But my phone wouldn't download it. And to the point where I still didn't have it as I was going up in the lift with their manager. So I was about to pitch them this amazing idea that I didn't know what the idea was. It was horrific. I was sweating. And then I just went, I really need the loo. And I legged it over to the loo. And I was like, okay, right, I've got it. It ran out. And they were like, right, what's this idea? And I had to pitch them, basically read it off my phone. And so here's this amazing idea, which Ryan had come up with, thinking that we had a budget of 10 million, presumably.
No, but it was a big budget. It was like 250 grand music video, wasn't it? And it was where Robbie had just come back into the band.
Okay.
So it was like that first album where he came back and he was in the music video. And I think it was the first video where they'd all done together back as a team, like all 5 of them whatsoever. But so on the first night, we were shooting all the band and all the music stuff and all the crowd. It was like -5, wasn't it, in Bulgaria, shooting on these back lots. And when you watch the video, it's like it feels really big budget because we had army and helicopters and tanks and everything in this music video. But we were shooting all that stuff the next day. And Matt couldn't be around for day 2. But
I had to go and pitch this other film. It was the make or break day to see if we'd get the money.
But we had to pretend that Matt was staying with me because we were being hired as a team to co-direct this music video together. So on the first night after we finished shooting with the band, we were all back at the hotel having beers and stuff. And Matt had to duck out of the hotel,
to go
through the kitchens via the services, get into a cab that was waiting, get on a plane that was waiting for him to fly back to England.
There's a passenger bike waiting for me.
Yeah, passenger. Whilst I was still sitting with the band and stuff in the hotel, drinking with them. Whereas Matt, he's absolutely knackered. He's gone up to bed because all the band were flying out that night, the next morning anyway. So it was just me on my own.
But then one of the guys from Sony basically he came there. He was like, I'm catching a plane, but I think there's a cab waiting outside for, am I going with Matt? Is it? And everyone turned around and looked at me and went, what are you talking about? No, I've got to shoot tomorrow. And everyone's like, yeah, that'd be ridiculous. And then he went off, got in the cab. I had to get another one. And then he was getting on the same plane. So it was like the most pathetic, it was like a kind of spy comedy where I had to hide behind a newspaper for the entire thing with my hands shaking. So he didn't see me. Apparently found out later.
Yeah, then we just shot, and I just shot. And I never worked the music video the next day.
They shot the next day with the guns and tanks and stuff.
All the guns and tanks and did all the cool stuff. Yeah,
which kind of ties in with Triple Frontier.
Yeah.
So
Signing it nice. I like the link you did there.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to what you did on Collide as well with the action and Triple Frontier. Can you tell us why you brought Triple Frontier to the table and what happens in it?
When me and Matt were talking, I wanted to watch Black Hawk Down because I can't remember why, but I'd been talking about Black Hawk Down and Matt said to me, mate, we can't watch films we've already watched. Let's watch something new that we've never seen before. And I was like, well, all right, but Black Hawk Down's a bit of a classic, man. Because I remember us both talking about Black Hawk Down and loving it.
It's great.
So I've got this theory, right? I heard this somewhere else. So this is not my own theory. But there's this thing called post-aesthetic and pre-aesthetic. Have you heard about it?
No.
So post-aesthetic is kind of before the age of 14, before you've formed your aesthetic of what you like in movies, and kind of, like when you used to watch things like Short Circuit, and you think, wow, that movie was amazing. Then you watch it when you're in your sort of like now, and you're like, wow, that movie's rubbish. How did I ever think that movie's any good? Because that's like pre-aesthetic, before you'd formed what you like. And then when you form your aesthetic, it's kind of from that age, from about 14 to about 19, 20, 21 perhaps. Right. And that was like my formative years, like where I was watching, talking about Jonathan Ross and those martial arts movies that were like on BBC Two or Once Upon a Time in the West or Sergio Leone. And when I was growing up, like massive movies for me were Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Predator. Tony Scott was like one of my hero when I was growing up. So I just really, and that kind of really imprinted heavily on me and those kind of John Woo style action movies.
Sure.
So, and on my second film, like Welcome to the Punch, I got to work with Ridley Scott, and he was the executive producer on the film. So that was like a dream come true to be working with him every week. And
was it a Scott-free production?
Yeah. He was like the executive producer, so it was like a Scott-free production on Welcome to the Punch. So that was like a really amazing process. And in fact, I think Tony Scott passed away when we were just in the post-production of that movie, which I was kind of really upset about because he was one of my heroes growing up. But yeah, so in that period of like forming what my aesthetic is and what, and in that period is like when you listen to hip hop and music and the hip hop I still listen to now is like 90s flavored hip hop that I sort of still...
Drake, I don't understand.
Don't get it. Mumble rap, I just don't get.
So for me, it's like, I completely get what you're saying. Me and Helen were talking about this, and like when people were first introduced to Star Wars, you were saying it's like 15 or so. If they watched Star Wars for the first time after 15, you were like, they wouldn't like it. But I was like, I think there's a bit more leeway with a film which is actually good. But I totally get the aesthetic of me for it was like Oasis and hip hop and some kind of rock music. Outside of that kind of bubble, if it doesn't kind of conform with that, it has to be something truly amazing to.
Yeah, and even hip hop I listen to
yeah.
now. I used to grow up loving like Big Daddy Kane and Brand Nubian and all the kind of sort of like rare East Coast hip hop of that era. And even now, the hip hop I listen to has to kind of hark back to that style. Otherwise, I just can't listen to it. It's too minimalist and too like mumblecore or whatever. But so that was a big part of like. Why I wanted to become a filmmaker, why I wanted to get into the industry. My dad used to own a video store as well when I was a kid. So my stepfather used to own 3 different VHS rental stores back in like the late 80s and early 90s.
You would have been my
favourite friend at school.
Yeah. I got plenty of that. Like, or I'd get into the shop after school and they'd say, oh, your mate was in there earlier saying he knew you. So he gave me, I was like, I don't know that kid. They'd be like, no, he took out about 8 films. No, like never came out. He's like, oh yeah, I'm in the class of Eran. But
he never rewinds. He can't come back.
He can't come back. But and I just sort of spent my life, my sort of kind of those teenage years in a VHS store, rental store under the basement, watching every movie going. And a lot of those movies were those kind of action movies, like that sort of hark back to things like Black Hawk Down, or that reminded me of movies like Triple Frontier, even though I hadn't seen it. I was like, oh, that looks like one of those films that as a teenager I would have absolutely loved.
So, and what happens in Triple Frontier? They got a 2-minute synopsis window.
Right. So I've had to write the names down because they got some like Oscar Isaac called Santiago Pope Garcia, and Ben Affleck is called Tom Redfly Davis. Charlie Hunnam is William Ironhead Miller. I like the fact that Garrett Hedlund is just Ben Miller. And like Pedro Pascal is Francisco Catfish Morales, but Garrett Hedlund is just Ben Miller.
He didn't turn up to that meeting.
He didn't get a middle name. They didn't give him a middle
Pink,
name.
he didn't like it.
So basically the film starts off like Oscar Isaac is his character called Santiago Pope Garcia. He's a private military contractor. I think when you're watching it, he's a PMC, private military contractor. He's tracking down this criminal, this kind of Colombian drug lord called Lorea. He's tracking down this Colombian drug lord called Lorea. They track him down to this kind of weird discotheque in this Colombian town. There's this huge kind of kick-ass opening action sequence. And then you realise that one of the women in this opening action sequence is one of his informants. And she basically says to Oscar Isaac's character, listen, Lorea's got this place tucked away, this house, which is basically like a living safe, like a huge safe where he keeps $75 million of the drug money that he's made. And I think I can get you in there. I think I can give you the information you need. And Oscar Isaac then kind of approaches his old PMC, private military contractor crew, which is made up of Ben Affleck, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal. And he puts down this option to let's go down there and let's raid this guy's jungle home, steal the 75 million worth of drug money that's hidden out there, because us guys have worked a whole life as private military contractors. We've done things for our country that have not been returned in favour. Your kind of Ben Affleck's character is this kind of broken guy that's he's a realtor and trying to sell houses. Garrett Hedlund, Charlie Hunnam's character is kind of doing motivational speeches around the country. They're kind of penniless, they haven't got much money, they're struggling to survive, but they used to be this very slick, hardcore crew of private military contractors. And he basically gets them back together and they go on an old school classic heist movie to steal the $75 million, and it all goes completely tits up.
Spoiler.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Helen, what were your thoughts before watching the film? What were your thoughts?
So my thoughts before watching it, way before watching it,
Oscar
was
Isaac.
when I got the perspective text of we're looking at the other side of the wind and Black Hawk Down. I was a bit like, oh, not seen Black Hawk Down in a while. Quite excited for that.
It's a good film, right?
Yeah.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks for that.
And then I got the text of Triple Frontier. I was like, oh, what's that? I don't know what that is. And then looked it up and went, the Oscar Isaac's film. So you have obviously films with people in that you will watch regardless of what the film is like, if it's got that particular person in. And Oscar Isaacs is one of those people for me. I enjoy seeing what projects he's up to. not really heard that much about it. I mean, I wish she'd probably pick Black Hawk Down.
So do I. No, I'm not.
When you were talking about, so Ben Affleck, I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more about him. I mean, his effort in this film is about the amount of effort that he puts into selling houses in his, his day job.
Someone made a really funny remark that he looks he looks about as haunting in his days as when he was on the press tour for Batman vs Superman, and someone started reading out his reviews. And have you seen that clip where he's like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend"? He got a sort of like haunted stare at it. But I got from this is their motive for the money is that they think they would owed it or they deserved it. So you kind of have to get behind this group who've been put together by the motive that they should steal someone else's money who's got it by ill gains in the first place. But in the trailer, they sort of say you took 5 bullets for your country and yet you're driving around in an old pickup truck. Yeah. And it kind of is meant to sort of go, oh, well, yeah, wow. That sort of summarizes the reasons why they should go after this heist. And
then there's a bit of like getting the gang back together, but without any kind of fun. And then they steal the money.
Yeah, we didn't even see the MMA fight, did we?
No, you're right.
That
was really weird.
That was
a
quite weird cut point, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I was like, all right, we're going to see, and he just goes whack, and then it just cuts to them driving on that bridge.
That Orson Welles had those scissors in there. We're not doing that
one. So they steal the money, and as you expect, things don't go to plan because they get too greedy. And then there's some brilliant helicopter action. Oh, yeah, great. You just have to watch that. And then there's a really, really sad bit with the donkey that dies.
Is that your saddest bit? It's got a lot of other stuff in it.
Yeah, but the donkey was there. It didn't need to die.
Well, Oscar Isaac, that's the bit where he...
CGI donkey.
I don't think they did it for him. I think that's the bit where Oscar Isaac gets the most cut up. A lot of other things happen to him, but he gets really unnaturally distressed about the donkey.
That bit was quite good, actually, wasn't it? Because he kind of like, so many people have been killed, and he goes, "Oh man, I'm done."
I was like, "You kidding about the donkey?"
Yeah, a few more people die unnecessarily, and then spoilers. Then one of the main characters died.
The donkey.
I think we can. We're going to talk about what happens.
You could guess which one, but at this point, I was ready.
This is part of the game,
for one of them to die. I was like, one of them needs to die now.
This is part of the game when they're getting the band together. I was like, okay, which one of you is going to die?
Who's going to die?
And I predicted it was Ben Affleck because he had. Well, you saw someone who wasn't outside. Someone was outside the circus. You saw his child, and you heard a bit of his family backstory. So I was like, well.
They have more to lose.
Yeah. He's got the X Factor backstory.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Except in X Factor, they don't die if they have to.
But actually, having said that, the ratings are down, so maybe that's something they could introduce in the next show.
What was your thought, Matt, and Triple Frontier?
Well, it's not the kind of film that I would necessarily seek out always. Like it's very much like, like it's a Men on a Mission. It's the kind of Expendables thing. 50% of it I really liked. 50% of it I thought wasn't very good, and so it's got an amazing cast. It could have been like the Treasure of Sierra Madre. It has that vibe about it. It's a director who I love,
JC Chandor.
Yeah, he's a fantastic director. So it just felt like a bit of an unusual choice. I was like, oh right, he's going to really spin it. It's beautifully shot often, and I think the heist scene. It's not, heist scenes are always tense. This is super fucking tense. I was like, oh. And it's got some great stuff in it. But then it also has a lot of the super cheesy thing where I'm always like, do people really speak like this? Maybe they do. Or maybe they do now that they've seen all those films. But I was like, when military types get together, do they always speak in that weird way that people do in films? I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. And the whole thing, I took a bullet for my country. And it's hard to sympathise with them.
It's like Ben Affleck expositing before going in there. It's like, if there's any women or children, we're not going in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
It's not my vibe at all. I'd imagine that a lot of people just wouldn't say that stuff. They might think it, but they wouldn't necessarily. I was kind of hoping they would pull. I was thinking, if you did a kind of a non-cheesy Expendables, that could be really exciting. So I thought that's what it was going to be. And it was at times, and at times it wasn't. But I think I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would from the beginning. From the beginning, I was like, oh, this is going to be a bit creaky, and then I kind of got into it.
I kind of like the idea of a non-cheesy Expendables because I think it just doesn't really work for me, the Expendables. And I love films recently like The Raid where it's just like stripped back
That's
and
amazing.
let's just make this film like it would be in real life.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking Triple Frontier was going to be.
Did you?
Because I did. I think
Given all of the talent involved, so you've got Kathleen Bigelow is a producer on it. What's his name?
Mark Boal,
yeah.
JC Chandor.
And then, the cast as well, everything is pointing for it to have come out a bit better than it did. I mean, even with the setting, because they've kind of taken it out of maybe, a more traditional setting, they could have gone and, transported it to...
Well, they're kind of taken like Narcos idea, whacked in Pedro Pascal, brought him in, and
Where are the Narcos though? That's the thing. It's like in all those... I wanted to say, I thought it was going to be a bit like, was it called The Counselor, that Ridley Scott film, which it's not, I don't particularly like as a film. Like everything about it, all the ingredients should have made it the best film of all time. But that finishes with the bleakest ending of all time. You're like, if you mess with the cartels, it's over for you. And that's how this should have finished.
Engine where he puts the thing around.
Yeah, and it's like, and then everyone knows, and his girlfriend's died, and then he gets sent the snuff film, and he knows he's next. It's like, whoa. Well, I thought that was going to happen with this. It's like, well, they're clearly one by one, they're all going to die because that's what they deserve.
Sure,
but they don't.
It didn't. Yeah,
they're like, oh, all right, okay.
My main problem with this film is that it just didn't have. I didn't get what the kind of point was, because at first you think Oscar Isaac wants to get Larrea, and he makes the point of like finding him even though they've got all the money. And he's like, no, I need to do one more sweep, and they get him. I was like, okay, that's going to be fine. And Ben Affleck was the most reluctant, and he's like, I don't really want to do this. But then he finds all this money, and he's like, I need more than we ever even thought we were going to get. And then that compromises everything. And then
the other three are just like there because they need someone to do that particular thing.
Yeah, and it's just because it just found it like a whole kind of a struggle to watch it from like, why are we doing this? I really love the setup, and I like the way. I think for me, I enjoyed the first half more than I enjoyed the second half. And I know other people...
It's definitely a film with two halves, isn't it?
Yeah. I know other people prefer the second half to the first half. So it'd be interesting to... You said 50-50. Was it like half and half? Was it just like the idea versus what?
Yeah, it was more the idea. But I would say, I think up until the point where they leave the heist, that was the peak for me. And then after that, they just make a series of like blatantly stupid errors where you're just like, oh, come on. And then when it all goes wrong and they start blaming each other, they are like a bunch of fifth graders. They go, well, you said this, I was like, oh, come. No, surely they would just be efficient and ruthless, move on.
Yeah.
They can bitch about it 10 years later. But at that point, it's like, really, you're going to start quarreling, almost killing each other with a donkey? I mean, unless you really... It's not like that's been kind of shadowed earlier. He loves donkeys. That just happened in the moment and is never commented on again.
But I think... again, this goes back to Netflix and the importance of Netflix and bringing out these projects. Do you know like the development history of this movie? So I was kind of looking into it, and I'd heard of Triple Frontier. So originally it was meant to be directed by Kathleen Bigelow. So she was going to make it her film, I think, either after Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30.
Right.
So it's going to be her next film. Mark Boal had written it. And I was chatting to my agent earlier on, who knows a lot, who gets a hold of all of these sorts of scripts and reads them. And he said he'd read the original version by Mark Boal before JC Chandor. They didn't write it together.
Right.
JC Chandor came on afterwards, after many years of it dwelling in development hell and not happening, and came on and completely kind of rewrote the screenplay himself. Apparently the Mark Boal version was much more like in the kind of the way the Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 was much more true to life, really, because he's an ex-journalist, and the way that he heavily researched like the Zero Dark 30 screenplay, he did the same on this. Triple Frontier is like a real region of South America.
Oh, is that what it is?
So it's like, I think the Triple Frontier means these 3 points where Colombia, the borders of these three countries, and it's almost like a no man's land, it's like the Wild West, basically.
Sure.
And I think he'd obviously read some newspaper report or something about the Triple Frontier, this no man's land where all bets are off. It's like the Wild West. And I imagine that original screenplay. And because I was looking at I was thinking about my favourite heist films like Rafifi, which is one of my favourite films, Heat, The Sting, Three Kings. I was thinking about Three Kings as well. This film really reflects...
We reviewed their Three Kings in here.
And there was elements of that where this film could have been Three Kings, but, and The Usual Suspects, Italian Job, Ronin, Ocean's 11. And I was kind of looking at that, and I was looking at all the heist movies and what makes heist movies great. It's like the planning stage, the execution stage, the escape. And they've all got those similar beats of the complications they have to go through, putting the team together, a reason beyond the cash of why they're doing it, which kind of they put down to this film that we're kind of sticking it to the man. Our bodies are riddled with bullets and scars on what we've given to this country, and we deserve this money. But it's sort of weirdly when you're watching it, it's all there. It's kind of got all the elements. So I imagine the original script by Mark Boal may have had all those elements. So I think all that stuff is kind of roughly in there for it to be a great heist movie. But for some reason, when you're watching it, it just doesn't quite deliver it. It's just like it never seems to hit the right beats or scale the heights it needs to. I felt like the heist when they get into Lorea's jungle compound was almost like too easy. Like there was no drawn out kind of tension or set piece. You know,
I find it tense, but it's not as tense as other films.
It's not tense. It was tense, but it felt like they were too slick. They kind of just took everyone down really easily, and then they were out of there. And I was like, oh, is that it? They've kind of got away with the money.
Because when that finished, I paused it. And it's like 45 minutes in, so it's like still an hour and a half.
Of the film. Ages left this film. What's going to happen?
And that's what I was kind of hoping with. It's going to be like almost a Tutankhamun curse. Like everyone who was involved in it was going to be hunted down, but that didn't happen either.
Well, because they said, oh well, actually, look, it's not as you thought. It was just one boss. It's all the cartel. They burnt this house full of all. So it's like they're going to have helicopters after them. They're going to have everything, and instead they send over a couple of teenagers. Like really? That just didn't. And especially after they had all the setbacks due to their own moronicness, and they ended up still managing to, still being chased by 3 people. I thought there's going to be something would happen just after they've crashed. They think it's one guy with a gun, and then suddenly 3 helicopters come over the top. I assumed it was going to end like Butch Cassidy. They were going to come out, and that was it. Yeah, but
actually, from the consequence of doing the heist and stealing Lorea's money, there were no consequences from that. None of those people who ever caught up with them. It was the son of one of the guys they'd shot in that field when they crash landed. That was the guy that followed Ben Affleck and
killed him specifically.
Specifically killed him. Yeah. So that was just an outcome of something that happens midway through the film, like a kind of almost sub-story. And then I couldn't quite figure out who those people were on the beach, chased them at the end. Yeah. You know, the people they were like a bunch of teenagers, and there was like teenagers with machine guns. Like, who is that? This is just how lawless it is. Everyone's got machine guns, and you just get chased if you're in drug territory.
It was weird. It was really weird. Well, they said one of the guys said, "Oh, they've recruited." But when he comes back, Garrett Hedlund says, "Oh, apparently there's like a local town, and they've recruited a bunch of local kids or something." But it's like if these are the top cartels in the entire world, these guys like own countries, like their annual GDP is the same as Europe, and so the idea that they would then send 3 guys with a rifle feels a bit weird. Unless they just thought, do you know what? It's only money.
I mean, this money, it goes back to the money, and at the end they were quite happy with, we got £1 million each. Yeah. We got $1 million each.
Yeah, they still got quite a lot of money, even though one of them died and it was...
Then they gave it all away.
I think one looks for a film like this is like, if they just made a sensible choice earlier on, none of this bullshit would have happened.
Yeah. Well, if they hadn't had all that money, then the helicopter wouldn't have crashed, they would have made it in time, and then the film would have been over a lot shorter than its 2 hours.
What I was thinking from a filmmaking perspective is like, I was thinking, okay, me and you are writers, we work together on stuff, and I was thinking, how would I have made that?
I was going to ask you. I was asking you.
I was trying to figure out how
the recut, the director's cut.
Well, I was thinking that when it starts off and they're sort of setting up all these different characters like Garrett Hedlund and Ben Affleck, it was like they showed you a few moments of Ben Affleck. He's struggling as a realtor. He opens the fridge and I think there's a few sort of red letter bills that are stuck on the fridge. You go, wow, this guy's under it. He's got a few bills that he needs to pay. And that almost in the entire motivation for why he suddenly changed his opinion about the money. Yeah. I was like, you see, he's got a few bills. He's struggling to sort of sell the real estate property. Yeah. And then suddenly when he's on the middle of that heist, this is a man of principle who didn't want to do the heist, who doesn't want to go back and return to that life. And suddenly he becomes just full of greed. Yeah. And he's like, no, we need to get more bags. We need to get more bags on the truck. And Garrett Hedlund says, you've never not made a hard out, man. It's like, what's happened to you? Why have you changed? And I was like, wait a minute. In the last scene, he hadn't changed. He literally made a complete turnaround in his character in one scene, which I found really odd. It's like it felt like if you'd have fed that into the beginning, that he was gambling, that he had really bad gambling problems, that he was about on the precipice of losing his house with his daughter, that life had gotten too much, that he was making the wrong choices and wrong decisions, and maybe he was even considering robbing a bank in order, I don't know. And then you realise that when he gets into that situation, this is a man on the edge, that it will do anything to get that money or to improve his...
Or the other way could have been that because he was kind of the one against it, that it took everyone else to kind of convince him, and he was always reluctant in the end, and he was just like, I'm only going to do it for you guys, man.
Yeah.
And then when
And then
he
he was
obviously
gets
gets
it- yeah.
popped, then
Well,
you're
maybe
like,
they could have solved it with just a close up of the red letter bill, just saying 70 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Because as it stands, in my head, I was like, maybe he needs $250,000 and he'll be clear all his debts and he'll
Yeah.
be fine. So there's no need for the super greed.
No,
he
but
wants
also
to-
I think I was looking forward to
and then
more.
they burn the rest of it as well.
Yeah, I was looking forward to more of the kind of the frictions within the team and them slowly imploding, and then the tension of maybe they get hauled up in a cave or on a mountain, and they know the guys are coming in, and they blame each other. One shoots the other, but they basically the only disagreement they have in the whole thing is about the donkey. And then after 5 seconds later, he goes, "Do you know what? I'm being a dick." And he goes, "Yeah, I know."
I was being a dick about the donkey. Let's not
Yeah,
worry about it.
That's all right. Let's burn all this money. Let's throw in a hole.
That was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
shame, but it had, like you said, it has so many good ingredients, and I think, that cast, Oscar Isaac has never been bad in anything. I think he's.
Have you seen The Most Violent Year? The previous
Yeah.
Jason. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
a really big fan of that vastly underseen film, I think.
Yeah, and it's got that really kind of uneasy sort of tension, even though nothing major kind of happens,
Yeah.
and it just sustains it through the whole film, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of with him at every moment in it.
I'd like to see what Mark Boal's script would have been like. Actually.
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
I think
I'd love to find the original script, what that would have been like.
But also, who knows what pressures in between? Like, say, I mean, we've talked about this earlier, but I mean, to get something like this made, it might be that along the way, it went through development hell.
Yeah.
And there's like, look, you get this made by making it more like The Expendables and less like Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
That's, who knows? So there've been other pressures in terms of who you cast in it, or you've got to have them get away. Maybe none of them made it out of the original version, and maybe they all had to make it out of this one.
Yeah, look, it's easy to kind of knock filmmakers, but the last film I made, Collide, which was like an action film that was produced by Joel Silver, who made like Lethal Weapon and Die Hard
And The Matrix.
and Matrix, yeah, and Predator.
Oh yeah, so many.
I was in a process there where 4 weeks or 5 weeks before we shot the film, the film was like one long action sequence with non-linear flashbacks to Nicholas Hoult and Felicity Jones's relationship, a bit like the first Deadpool. And we'd spent quite a few years crafting the screenplay to get it right. 4 weeks before we shot the film, or 5 weeks before we shot the film, we're in pre-production, I get a phone call from Joel Silver, who I don't know what was going on in his life at that time or what he was going through in whatever last movie he'd made. Yeah. He just phones me and goes, "Listen, kid, I made $10 billion at the box office. You made about 10 pence. He's like, "I don't fucking make movies with flashbacks." He's like, "We got to get rid of the flashbacks." I was like, "Yeah, but that's the main sort of spinal thread of the movie, the flashbacks." He's like, "This one action sequence with this non-linear, cool kind of transitions to flashbacks throughout their relationship. We got to get rid of the fucking flashbacks. Put all the flashbacks linear, put them up at the front of the movie." And I found myself literally just rewriting the film with trying to put all the flashbacks in a linear fashion at the front of the film. Changed the whole movie within 4 or 5 weeks, and it just fucked the whole film up. It literally wasn't the film that I'd intended to make over a period of 2 years. So you never know what happens in this. Filmmaking is such a crazy alchemy, and you don't know what happened on set, like what changes were made. But
Can I just say also, it's a fucking great film. So I know that it's not the same film that you had in your head, but it's interesting the difference in perception of someone who, because I didn't know any of that when I watched it.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. And then you told me all that. I was like, oh, fucking hell. I mean, not to say that the film you had in your head wasn't better, probably, but it's not noticeable to most people. I'd be interested to see what other people make of this if they were watching it, hoping it would be The Expendables, for example.
Well, I mean, this is why it's really cool to have you guys here who've actually been on the kind of cold face of like, this is my vision. Oh, this is not my vision because of external forces, but they still want me to make the film. And I'm like, well, I need to make it because otherwise someone else will make it completely fucking
yeah,
up.
and I imagine someone like Mark Boal is an amazing writer, and JC Chandor is an amazing director. And you never know the struggles that went on between those two, because I know they were still on board as producers, weren't they? Executive producers, Catherine Bigelow and Mark Boal. And you never know. Like, there's probably one struggle to take the movie this way. There's another struggle to make the movie more mainstream and universal. I felt like that was where the film kind of struggled. It was relentlessly grim in a way, and I don't know if all heist movies should be relentlessly grim. I think there's something about looking back at all those, like my favourite heist movies, like Three Kings
is
and
like hilarious.
The Italian Job, or Ronin. Even Ronin has high points where they kind of make it out, and there's where it
Reservoir Dogs,
very
funny.
The Sting, Ocean's 11, like all those sort of heist movies. There's moments of levity. There's moments where they make it out. There's moments where you love the camaraderie of the people that are committing the heist. But it didn't seem to have that. It was quite relentlessly a tough slog on all of them. And they kind of went, there was the way, the initial heist sort of started to go wrong and started to fall apart, and they started to have to kill people. And then from then on, it just felt like boom, 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 like one sort of negative note after the next.
Yeah.
Sort of like, and then the donkey died. Oh my God, the donkey!
Still can't believe they did that.
Yeah, but I will say this, I think it's still a level of prestige filmmaking in there.
Yeah.
I think some of the filmmaking was, like, some of the performances, the cinematography was amazing. I think some of the action sequences and were very tense and well pieced together. I would have loved to have seen what Tony Scott would have made of that. It would have been the sort of project that, my hero Tony Scott back in the day, he would have made mincemeat of that and made it absolutely amazing, that screenplay.
Well, and we could still keep on talking, but let's head to the scores as we're going through. Eran, you brought the film to us. Out of 5, how highly would you recommend it?
I'll give it a 3 out of 5 because I've had quite a few mates phone me up and say, "Oh, mate, have you seen Triple Frontier?" Who are kind of don't work in the film industry, just love those sort of action films, and have sent me text messages. "Oh, mate, you got to watch Triple Frontier. It's wicked." So you know what I mean? There is that kind of pretentiousness of coming from the film industry, and we sort of hang around with people that are kind of like watch movies all day. But just the average Joe on the street, I know that a few of my friends have really enjoyed it and recommended it to me to watch. So for me personally, I'll give it like a 3 out of 5.
Matt.
Well, I think you had the usual question of recommend to who, because I certainly wouldn't recommend it to like my mum, who would roll her eyes at me and say, "Well, why'd you make me watch that?" But on the other hand, I mean, to most of the people that I know, I'd give it a 3 because I think most people would enjoy it. It's got a lot to enjoy about it.
Helen.
I would also give it a 3. It's kind of got that 3 sort of vibe. I mean, it is a bit flabby. It could be a bit shorter, but there will be a lot of people who will watch this and they'll be like, "Oh, it's best film of the year."
Yeah, sure. Apart from donkey lovers.
Yeah. Apart from donkeys and...
I'm going to give it a bit higher than you guys. I'm going to go for 3.5 here.
Nice.
Not that much higher, though.
A bit
3.01.
Touch higher. I mean, everything there is on paper. JC Chandor, Catherine Boal, all the actors. I love Pedro Pascal. I don't think he's known enough. Garrett Hedlund and Charlie Hunnam's probably my least favourite actor on a roster, and he's not by any means a bad actor.
Yeah.
So even if someone said, "Oh, it's not that good," I'd still watch it.
Mate, it's a great Saturday afternoon watch. If you're just sitting around and you kind of want to flick something on that's an easy watch, and it's got a good bit of action, it's got some great actors, it's got a great director, it looks beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's one of those movies that you could happily watch on a Sunday afternoon, kicking back after you've had your dinner and chilling out.
I think it'd be super simple to recommend. If someone said, "Should I watch it?" I'd be like, "Yeah, have a watch. Maybe a bit long. Don't take it too seriously. Yeah, fill your boots, get some beers in."
Yeah.
One thing I did mention actually was that in that development process, when it was meant to be Catherine Bigelow that was directing it, it was going to be, I think Will Smith was going to be in the Ben Affleck role, and Tom Hanks was the Oscar Isaacs role.
Wow!
So it was Tom Hanks and Will Smith for the original cast.
Wow.
It had an amazing cast, original incarnation. When it was going to be, it was kind of greenlit. It was going into production. When how films pick up steam. I think she was coming off the back end of Oscar nominations, Catherine Bigelow, and whatever she wanted to do next. And Mark Boal had written this script, Triple Frontier. So there was a point when it was. Will Smith and Tom Hanks were in the movie, and it was going to be like a big prestige cinema release. And then it went, I don't know what happened with the movie, but it sort of kind of went into the development hell for the next 7 years or so.
Wow.
And then finally, it was one of those scripts that was out there. It was always heralded as being an amazing screenplay and something that should get made. And again, it was one of those things where I think someone like Netflix gives out an opportunity to movies like that, to kind of, like we were talking about the Irishman and Martin Scorsese, and maybe we never would have seen this film get made if it had been just left to the studios, because once things go into turnaround, they don't get made.
I would love to have seen Tom Hanks emote over a donkey though. That seems like a missed opportunity.
I don't know. He would have been far too old to.
Yeah, it feels unlikely.
I mean, Ben Affleck didn't actually do that much physical stuff, did he? Until he had to.
No, but this is Oscar Isaac. I can't imagine him even with the shot knees running up a.
Oh, that's
hill.
true. Actually,
in Mexico. I thought it was. Yeah, I mean the cast wasn't. The cast was great. I think the cast.
I don't know. Ben Affleck though. I mean, he wasn't there for this one.
I think that was him being more moody though. I think he was just being naturalistic. I think. I like Ben Affleck normally.
I like him sometimes.
Well, when you said about when you saw the lineup for the film and you thought, well, this is going to be a real deal kind of non-cheesy thing, but I actually thought with Ben Affleck in there, I don't think you could have that. That way. If it was Christian Bale in there, for example, or I think you need a film with lesser well-known actors fronting it to be able to pull off the kind of film where I would think this would be. Like, you can't have the Raid. I know they're trying to remake the Raid, but if they did the Raid with Will Smith and whoever knows, it just wouldn't. Yeah. It wouldn't be that kind of film. You need someone who just has the gravitas outside of being I'm a film star before they can go into it, I think.
You know, the film that I realised that I wish this had been like was Sicario and Sicario 2. I was kind of hoping it would have that atmosphere of Sicario 2.
But maybe a bit more beefier with the action.
Yeah, with kind of sort of like more heavier, kind of more Hollywood-esque action, but that kind of tone and feel and atmosphere. And it felt like it was on the brink of it sometimes, like when it had those huge great shots sweeping in and they're kind of heading into the jungle in their car, and I was going, this is going to be amazing, but it kind of never seemed to reach those heights. And
but they needed to die, basically, didn't they? Or at least by the end they should definitely be in the thing where they think they've got away with it, and then we know the cartel are coming in, and they know they've only got seconds left. I think just to hop off on a speedboat at the end, looking a bit sad.
Oscar Isaac goes off on a jolly to Australia with his girlfriend,
who's now a billionaire.
With the coordinates for the money that they've got ready in the mountains, which he's going to obviously probably go back and get.
And no one liked Ben Affleck anyways. It was a bit
Quadruple
miserable.
Frontier. The next one.
Repeat viewing score, guys. Eran, out of 5.
Repeat viewing. You know what? Like, I don't know. I think 3 out of 5 again. I think if it was like on a TV on a Saturday afternoon, it was like one of those ones you could easily just stick on and have it on in the background and watch, and a bit of fun.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of films in the world, and I haven't seen many of them. There's a lot of things to do, so I'm not sure I would necessarily watch it again deliberately. But if it was on, I'd maybe give it a 2. Is that harsh?
No, it's what you feel, isn't it? It's not.
I feel bad.
That's fine.
I feel terrible. Ben's
Don't
not
try and
speak
cast
to me
Ben
again.
Affleck in your next film, right?
I like Ben.
It's over 2 hours long. There's no way that this film needs to be that long. And as we've discussed many times, that there are a lot of films left in the world to see.
Yeah.
I mean, never say never. 1.5.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a 2. I think for the same reason. If my wife, I didn't watch my wife. If she had it on in the background, it wouldn't be one of the things I'd run out the lounge thinking, "Why are you watching that? For fuck's sake!" Sorry. Yeah, I think 2. What did I say? 2.5. I didn't say anything. 2.
I think it's 2. Yeah, you said
I can't remember what I even said myself. It's not that bad, but now we don't watch TV in the same way anymore. We don't have Film 4 just on and flick through, do you? So you have to actually physically choose Triple Frontier.
That's the thing. There's so much great stuff on Netflix. It was funny as we were talking about what to choose. I definitely had that thing like, oh my God, I've got the only thing is that my list thing. Mine now is basically most of Netflix.
Sure.
So actually probably be quicker just to look on Netflix rather than look at my list because it's about 7,000 films long.
I tell you what I'm loving about Netflix at the moment, and this is kind of going. There's something that's happening, kind of this disparity between what the critics say and what the audience score says, which I'm really enjoying about Netflix. Remember, like when we were kids, and films that I loved, like The Last Boy Scout, or Man on Fire, which I was just convinced that everyone loved. I was like, how can Man on Fire not be conceived as one of the greatest films ever made? And then I look at Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got like a 33% score on Rotten Tomatoes, Man on Fire. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And like The Last Boy Scout and all this kind of Tony Scott movies.
That's a great film.
And a great example of that is that Polar. Is it Polar? Polar that's just come out on Netflix with Mads Mikkelsen, the assassin movie.
Yes, yeah.
Polar, yeah. And I don't know how you say it. It's Polar. Is that Polar or Polar? Yeah. But it's like assassin movie, and the critics absolutely destroyed it. And it's kind of got like 9% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. But the audience score's up in the 80s. Yeah. And so many people have texted me, friends who are into action movies, and say, "Mate, you've got to watch Polar. It's absolutely wicked. I loved it." And it kind of reminds me of that thing that films get a chance on this, whereas like Bright by Will Smith was absolutely like eviscerated by critics, and I didn't watch it because of it. And I watched it recently, and I was ill in bed, had the flu, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, God damn, this is the best ill movie I've ever watched in my life. But it really, I think the streaming services and that disparity between what the critics are saying and what audiences want is a good thing. That it gives films a chance to live and breathe, and whether and I think that Triple Frontier is kind of one of those movies. Like, look, not everyone's going to love it, but I think there's an audience out there just going to flick on this and just love it and watch it, and it'll be a kid's favourite film when they grow up. Pre-aesthetic, post-aesthetic. When he gets older, he'll be like, oh, that was really crap, actually.
It's not The Expendables. But I think you have that thing when, what I love is also the kind of the shelf life that, kind of starting out in British indie filmmaking you still have the same rules apply, whether you're Transformers or whether you're a tiny little film, and you have the weekend to survive. And Karen Morley's new film has come out, and she's been been tweeting to everyone, just going, please go and sit, because for whatever reason, because of the mentalness of the economics of the logic is that, okay, well, it's got to get out there, even though it's only playing on a tiny fraction of the numbers, and it's never going to, it can't possibly compete with a really big film. Can't be Avengers because it was never intended to be. But I think things like Netflix or streaming services enable you to find it, and in the way that I think in the old days, a taxi driver would have played in New York and LA for 2 months. Yeah. Gets the buzz, then they start branching out. Oh, it's doing quite well here. It's good, and they work it out. That doesn't happen anymore, but it does on streaming.
Small screen score, guys. Eran.
It's a tough one because it's got some quite amazing, epic widescreen shots and I noticed that the way he filmed it, and I wondered sometimes if this was the detriment to how the film was made. It was that what I used to love about Tony Scott and how he would make films, he would get stuff on a long lens and really get in on the sort of kind of perspiration and sweat and make things feel quite sort of what's the word, claustrophobic and constraint. And there was constraint in the way the framing was. Everything was quite wide and open in this film. It was like lots of wide shots and lots of kind of mediums. And I felt like, for example, in the helicopter crash and the helicopter was going down, and this is something that I think J.C. Chandor is obviously a prestige director and like he makes amazing films, but he is somebody who very much sort of tells the story as it is and he lets the camera sit there. And I did feel like in some of those moments on the helicopter crash that you really wanted to be in there and feel the visceralness of the camera shaking and kind of, do you know what I mean? And it felt like the sort of kind of tamest helicopter crash that I'd ever seen.
It was very crafted. I thought, he landed that one well.
Yeah, it all felt quite tame and they were all just kind of sitting there and it all felt quite static.
Who's going to die in this? Who's going to end up with a bit of like helicopter stuck in them? And he landed that safely.
No one died.
Yeah.
Your man was hanging off the bottom of it, got up.
Yep, he's fine.
Brushed his hair, got up.
Yeah, I thought someone's got to be mangled in this.
Yeah, there was. I completely agree with you, and I just felt like after that there was zero jeopardy. Yeah. The first bit with the helicopter where you thought there's a bit of jeopardy is going to the Andes. It's like, can we make it? Yeah. No. Throw away 100 million. Okay, we're through now. Okay, fine. And I was just like, this is what it's going to be like. So yeah, there's a lack of jeopardy all the way through.
Yeah, and I felt like it kind of. I think that was there was a sort of slight contradiction with the way the film, that was a contrast in the way the film was made and the sort of kind of classic widescreen sort of Michael Mann Heat style shots. Whereas I think sometimes it would have kind of benefited from being a bit more up in the characters' faces, it'd be a bit more handheld and verite and just like a bit more of a nervous energy to how it was kind of pieced together in very much in Catherine Bigelow's style and what she does in Hurt Locker and things like Zero Dark 30. I actually felt that the film would have benefited more from that. So I would have loved to have seen his screenplay of her directing it and seen what that would have actually come out as, because I think that the initial conception of the movie was from both their minds.
But the pitch is amazing. The idea is like you rob the cartel. It's like that's madness. And the idea you go in there and you do it right, but then you realise you haven't robbed one cartel, but you robbed everyone. That's terrifying.
There's no tension in it. There's no element of danger.
There's a weird sort of...
There's bits where there should be tension. You're a bit like, oh, no.
Well, on that revelation that they've suddenly realised they robbed the entire cartel or every cartel that's ever existed, that should be like, oh, fuck, we made a massive blunder. But they just go, we got more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Let's load up the helicopter slowly.
I'll pay off all the bills. Yeah. Sorry, back to the small screen score. Right.
So it's a weird one in the small screen because it sort of felt like I actually was watching it. I was thinking, I would love to have seen this on a big screen in the cinema, some of these wide epic shots. So whereas I think, other films benefit from being there, I don't know if I'm sort of kind of in the middle. I think it's like a 3. I think you can watch it on your phone, but I think it's like in the middle of a 3 because I would have liked to have seen that on a big old widescreen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I saw it on our TV at home, which is like an all right size, but it was still one of those things where I think if I'd been watching it on my phone, I'd be missing 50% of it.
Sure.
So I'll go for a 3.
Ellen?
I'm also going to go for a 3. I mean, it's shot to be seen at the cinema. And it
didn't get any cinema release, did it?
I don't think so, no.
I don't know. I'm sure Netflix would have released it to some chain, but it would have been super low key. I remember
seeing a trailer for it.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, there was a trailer before Us, I think, which is a bit random. But I don't know. But sometimes they're just, like with Amanda Knox, I saw the trailer on the screen. So I don't know if it was a trailer
for it being on Netflix, but I definitely did see a trailer for it, which pitched it as a film that you should go and see on a big screen and loud.
I would have liked to have seen this more on a big screen, so I'm going to go lower than you guys with a 2. I think it would have been just a better experience as well. I think some of these films, like Zero Dark 30, was amazing on the big screen, even though it was like a bit more up close and personal and like more on Chastain's face, but it's still like a bigger film. 2.5.
Ooh.
Engagement score. Eran.
Kind of, it's a tough one because I was quite engaged in the first half of the movie and I was sort of going along with these characters and I felt quite, engaged and into the film. And then weirdly, when it took that weird sort of turn halfway through and I felt the tension sort of drain out of the film and I realised that the Colombian cartel weren't going to be on their back and it was basically the trials and tribulations of trying to carry heavy money through a mountainous region. I was like, so is this what the actual antagonist of the film is? Like a mountainous heavy region? I was like, where's the villains gone?
The villain is gravity.
Oh yeah, we need to do a selfie before.
Yeah. So I found that really weird that kind of halfway through you think it's going to be like the antagonist sort of faded away from being the Colombian drug cartel and became trying to haul $250 million through a mountainous region with a donkey.
So did you enjoy the first hour more?
I enjoyed the first hour, I think, more than I did the second hour. So I'd give I'm coming in at a 3, I think. I'm a hard 3 on this. So I'm talking middle ground.
It's a 3 type of film.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I wouldn't rush out into the street screaming at people to recommend it or avoid it. I'd probably say 3 as well. Some of it really, I mean, the heist, you're right. The heist could have been more gripping, but it was still fucking gripping. It's still terrifying.
Yeah, the heist, it was good. Yeah, it was.
Just they should have been a bit less good at their jobs, I think.
Yeah.
And for you, first half or second half?
Definitely first half. After the big revelation of they've robbed the entire cartel from the beginning of the dawn of man. That was like, oh shit. That's really going to get nasty. It's going to be horrible.
This film is going to kick off.
Who's going to die first? No one dies.
No one dies.
Apart from the donkey.
And the donkey does. Donkey.
Ben Affleck dies a bit too easily as well. It's like,
yeah.
Have any of you seen Ocean's 8?
Yes.
Have you seen Ocean's 8, which is another heist movie?
Yeah.
And that was one that I sort of felt that, compared to like the original Ocean's 11, I really wanted them to get that screenplay right, Ocean's 8. And it was like, but there was no antagonist in the film. There was no villain. No. Like in the first film, you had Andy Garcia and he was kind of like this antagonistic force and he kind of had this fearsome reputation that if you ever get caught, he will kill your family, he'll kill your cat, dog, do you know what I mean?
Donkey.
Donkey. He'll kill everyone. And it's sort of suffered from that. It was weirdly had no antagonist in the film. And and I think Ocean's 8 suffered from the same where it felt all a little bit too easy and they just sort of breezed through it.
It was too easy and then they had like a secondary heist which they didn't tell anyone about, which was like double the money.
Oh, really?
In like Ocean's 8. It was just like, where's this come from at the end?
Yeah.
Sorry, Helen, engagement score.
So I had to watch this in 2 sittings and...
Was it first half, second half for yourself? Did you have a preference?
I quite enjoyed the second half more, I think, but I don't know if that's because I didn't watch it all in one go. I mean, it's far too long for what it should have been. 2.5 for me.
2.5. I'm going to go for 4 here.
Oh.
Because
wild card.
Because I thought the setup was great. I thought the idea was great. And when the turn, like you said, this is all the cartel's money, I was like, okay, this is like buckle in, son. And then it's like things happen. I was like, it's going to happen now. It's going to happen now. Hold on. They've thrown the money away. It's in a hole. Don't worry. It's gonna. Oh, it didn't happen.
So you engaged with it just because you thought it was going to be good, even though it was bad.
Exactly. I wouldn't say bad, but I was just like, there's something to this that didn't fulfill. But I was into it.
The full 2 hours were your favourite, or did you?
No, I prefer the first half. Okay. In retrospect, the first half was until Ben Affleck decided to like steal all the money. And his morals were like kind of changed. Then it became like, in retrospect, that kind of changed the whole thing for me. Yeah. But up until that point, there's like, I really liked everything about it. But the first time watching Engagement was high pretty much all the way through because I thought it was going to end up somewhere different, which it didn't do. Which is kind of testament to the film in a way, I think. Yeah,
it's weird. Before I'd seen it and I'd read the synopsis, I assumed that the main Colombian drug dealer was going to kind of he's not really in it. He's only in it for like a couple of scenes and they kill him. And I was thinking, well, if you're going to build up this antagonistic force, this boogeyman, like he's going to be on their case for the entire movie, on their tails up until they get onto that boat. And I do wonder if that's where the kind of discrepancy became between the two filmmakers like JC Chandor and Mark Boal, is that he had a screenplay. He felt it was hitting too many generic beats of a heist movie, and he tried to subvert expectation and said, well, I'm not going to give everyone what they wanted, same like Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi. I was like, I'm just going to subvert expectation and throw what you expect out the window. And we're going to kind of go on this Deliverance style, you know, like the movie Deliverance with Burt Reynolds, and we're going to go on it's man versus nature to trying to get out, which was an interesting take. And I imagine on the page it may have read quite well, because that's the difference sometimes. What works on the page doesn't always work once it gets up on the screen. And I think they might have tried something different and tried to subvert expectation, but actually it just kind of drained the film without any suspense. And
well, I wonder if it might have been the other way. That's the thing. I mean, you can only speculate, but I think the Mark Boal, actually probably what happens in there after that point is probably more realistic. Maybe the cartel wouldn't instantly come at you with you know, a whole military. Maybe it would be a couple of guys on donkeys, but it's just quite hard to know, because I think Mark Boal tends to live in the real world, and maybe he would have kind of gone, well, actually, weirdly, there was a heist like this. Who knows whether it was inspired by anything.
Maybe 225, 250 million wasn't actually that much to them to, like, I mean, with... well, Pablo Escobar used to have so much money around that it just used to float up in streams and rivers. He used to bury it all and it just get washed away into streams and rivers when it rained. So maybe those guys would just had so much money that they thought, well, let's just sod it, because if we chase these guys down, go to America, what's going to happen to us? Yeah. The full force of the American military is going to go back on them. So they probably just thought, no.
So you think it wasn't, he built his house out of money, not because he just ran out of bricks and he thought, well, I've got enough money. Well, so he didn't even realise the value of it.
Insulation.
Wait, they killed they killed him then?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the guy that was hiding in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
And you remember the sort of the wardrobe opened, he fired,
him.
and they shot that person. That was actually the main big bad.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for him to pop up, because I thought, why would they have killed him that easily?
No, exactly. Well, that's the
Charlie Hunnam gets shot quite quickly and makes it all the way through quite happily.
But that's what gets forgotten about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He kind of gets shot and you think, oh, this is going to be a big thing. He's going to bleed out. He's going to die. And then he kind of like just seems to get better from it. And then forget about it.
Because it went all the way through.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
got some sepsis or something with there.
something. Yeah.
Guys, that gives us an overall score of 2.78.
Not bad.
Bit lower than I thought maybe going into it, but
I think there's a line and they sort of say near the end, like, oh, did you ever think this was really going to, we're really going to be able to pull it off? And I was sitting there going, no.
No, I didn't. I knew it was all going to go tits up the way exactly like it did.
Green-eyed monster just takes over everything, doesn't it? They could have walked away with $5 million each quite happily and lived a very happy life. Gone on a helicopter, made of the boat.
Yeah.
Didn't have to burn the house down, did they? Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having us on it.
Thank you for having us on.
Just give us a brief rundown on where we can find you. Yeah, what you got coming up.
I'm on Twitter sometimes. Matt with 1T Whitecross. And I've got a company called Mint Pictures. It's mint-pictures.com. And I'm working with James Gay Reese and Asa Kapadia on another documentary at the moment. So we're just in the middle of prepping on that. And I have no idea. I'm hopefully going to be doing some stuff with Iran in the future. We've got a plan for world domination. Nice. But, if it involves donkeys at some point, it might go tits up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. And me, I have just set up my own production company called Invisible Kid. And we are developing a slate of 6 to 8 projects. One of them is called Shotgun Mama, which is like a really cool sort of like Kill Bill exploitation flick. Got a TV show in development in America called Kata, which is like a big dystopian martial arts TV like epic set in a dystopian future. Got The Queen's Guard, which is a big action movie that has just sold to E1 and in pre-production on a sequel to Shifty. So various projects. Nice. Me and Matt keep the plate spinning, don't we? You've got enough plates spinning.
Well, I get the impression you guys have to have plate spinning because something might fall off.
Yeah. And you've got to kind of keep them firing. And we're developing stuff together that we've kind of come back together again after all these years and have been developing a sort of big TV project together. So,
fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
Cheers.
for having us. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, as always, for listening to this episode. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Leave us your 5-star review on iTunes and follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter.
Thank you so much to Brendan Russell for his amazing editing skills and to the lovely people, mighty people, for the tunes that you can hear right now.